Welcome to the Design Rush podcast. I'm your host, Kia Johnson. Today, we're talking about a strategy that every business owner should consider: niche marketing. Our guest, Mark Fidelman, CEO of SmartBlocks, is here to explain how honing in on a specific market can be the key to standing out in a crowded field and driving real growth.
When you're amongst a sea of general marketing agencies that are out there, it's hard for you to rise above the noise. You could spend more money, you can have better offers, there are some things that you can do. But if you're speaking directly to somebody, let's say they own a scuba dive shop, but all you do is scuba dive marketing, then you are going to win that business, or the chances of you winning that business are a lot higher.
For Mark, niche marketing isn't about limiting yourself. It's about establishing yourself as the go-to expert. This focused approach allows businesses to stand out by delivering specialized value that generalist competitors simply can't match.
The branding for us is security, that they're getting at least a fair investment at the time of investment. We turn down about 80% of the things that come at us. It just doesn't work, or it just doesn't work for our investors. It might be a great project, it just doesn't work for the investors that we're talking to on a regular basis.
In this episode, Mark reveals how building trust through niche positioning attracts loyal clients and brings new growth opportunities. When you're selective about the projects you take on, you reinforce your brand's credibility and ensure your work aligns with your values.
You get 4 or 5 customers in scuba dive niche, and then you move on to boats or yachts, or you just keep building off of that. So it's just a place to start. It's not your 5-year plan. It's more your 5-month plan.
Today, Mark will share how focusing on a niche market can drive your business, attract loyal clients, and open up new doors for growth. If you're an agency owner, CEO, or brand leader looking to strengthen your position in the market, this episode is for you. Got a story to share? Send it over to spotlight@designrush.com and let's make headlines together. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights from industry leaders. Let's dive in. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the Design Rush podcast. I hope you're well. It's lovely to have you here.
Well, thank you, Kia. Lovely to be here.
So, Mark, could you share the pivotal experiences and insights that inspired the inception of SmartBlocks and how these sort of formative moments influenced your approach to leveraging blockchain for innovations in real estate investment?
Well, I'll try to keep it short, but make a long story short, I started in the crypto marketing space. I've been in e-commerce. I've covered a lot of different marketing spaces. The crypto space had a lot of opportunity. The problem with it was, there's a bunch of charlatans and it's easy to get in, steal people's money and get out. Now, most of the crypto projects aren't like that, but enough of them, which have imploded as people have seen, has happened. So I moved over to what's called the security token space. These are tokens backed by real assets. These are actual securities. They're different than crypto, therefore they're not crypto. The only similarities are they both exist on the blockchain. And because we have securities, there's certain rules that you have to abide by, but also opens up the world to investments from everywhere else around the world, which to me is the beauty of it. I mean, imagine in 10 years, and this will happen, maybe even sooner, where in the United States you're getting a mortgage around 8%, but you could get one in Japan for 2.5%. But it's just too hard right now, and most Japanese investors or banks won't do it. But using a blockchain, using security tokens, using all the rules and regulations around that, you will be able to. So it'll be a much more competitive industry, and that's just one aspect of it in the mortgage industry. So I decided I'm going to get ahead of the curve. Wayne Gretzky famously said, "Go where the puck is, skate where the puck is going, not where it is," and that's exactly what we've done.
Amazing. Mark, to break down tokenization in real estate for our audience, right? Let's say you want to tokenize a block of flats. So you'd first look at the valuation and the structuring where the block of flats is appraised and then the total value is determined, right? Then the creation of the digital token will then commence, where the property's value is sort of divided into smaller digital tokens on the blockchain, as you mentioned, and then each representing then a fraction of ownership in the flat. So the next steps are then regulatory, which you also spoke about, your regulatory compliance, to ensure that obviously that token issuance actually meets the local real estate and investment regulations. And then, of course, the token, holders can then trade their tokens and receive the rental income proportional to their shares, and obviously also benefit if there's property appreciation. So, in essence, tokenization is complex. So, what branding and sort of client communication strategies have you found most effective in establishing trust and clarity with potential investors and sort of your high net worth clients, especially because, I mean, this is such a niche market, right?
It is for now, but it won't be in the future. Yes, I mean, trust is the ultimate issue here. Because of crypto, it's kind of polluted what we do on the tokenization side, because people think you can have your token stolen out of your wallet, that you could lose all your money. The answer to both is no. Somebody could take your tokens out of your wallet, but you just simply call the issuer up and just say they were stolen, reissue them. It's that simple. It's not like crypto in that regard. Everything's tied to a cap table, and the issuer can reverse that cap table anytime they want. So that's the beauty of it. But getting people to understand that, and the blockchain itself, which they are unaware of and don't trust. I mean, a blockchain is, I'd say it's similar to a database. Why aren't people asking about these database questions? Well, they used to 20 years ago, but they don't anymore because people just inherently trust the database. That'll happen with blockchain. Certain blockchains, maybe not all, but the ones that I've seen, the big ones, they're all very safe and very secure.
Now, Mark, in your experience, how can focusing on a niche market actually drive higher revenue growth for an agency? Are there like specific strategies within a niche that have proven especially profitable or that create unique revenue opportunities?
Yes, niches, especially if you're small, are very important. And I'll tell you why. Because when you're amongst a sea of general marketing agencies that are out there, it's hard for you to rise above the noise. You could spend more money, you can have better offers, there are some things that you can do. But if you're speaking directly to somebody, let's say they own a scuba dive shop, but all you do is scuba dive marketing, then you are going to win that business, or the chances of you winning that business are a lot higher, because people are like, oh, he's already generated leads for scuba dive companies around the world. So he knows exactly how to talk to my customer. He knows exactly how to generate leads, or she does great branding around scuba dive companies. I'm going to trust them more. That's why they say you should start with a niche most of the time, not all the time, especially when you're small. But when you're growing, then you just go from scuba dive maybe to marine life, or I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. But you can build off of that, and you don't turn away business because it's not scuba dive, but your focus and your branding is on one thing, and every scuba dive company around the country, I don't know how many there are, will know that you exist because you're marketing to a much smaller pool and they're speaking directly to that organization.
So in essence, what you're saying, it's kind of like you're niche, but you're able to be niche with so many different sort of subsidiaries, of that niche. So you're able to touch, in the various markets as well, which I think is pretty amazing, because if you're too niche, you can also have the risk of sort of cutting out, the rest of the market as well. So yeah.
Yeah, but you start there. You get 4 or 5 customers in scuba dive niche, and then you move on to boats or yachts, or you just keep building off of that. So it's just a place to start. It's not your 5-year plan. It's more your 5-month plan.
I see. Now, regulatory challenges are actually common in specialized industries such as yours. How have you addressed these for SmartBlocks, and what would you say are the 3 pieces of advice, rather, that you would give to other leaders entering these highly regulated markets?
Know the law and the regulations more than your attorneys do, so that you understand them, so that when you're making business decisions, you don't have to keep going back to these attorneys who are high priced and wanting to take more of your money. I mean, if you have a corporate attorney, that's different, but most of us don't. So really get in and study it. It's not that hard. They make the law so ambiguous and so difficult to understand. But you could use a tool like Claude Opus, which is really good at interpreting the law, and you just ask Claude Opus to look at these regulations and tell me, as if I'm a 13-year-old, what they all mean. and it does a really good job at that. Not as a whole. It's not going to take all the regulations as a whole. It's like page by page, and it's very, very good. And you can ask questions once it's loaded in. You can ask it questions about the law, and it's pretty damn good, I have to say.
I think that's great because, if you look at, if you have a brand or an agency, you're always going to be looking at the sort of cost-effective ways in which you can implement certain things. So be able to, learn this yourself and kind of teach yourself, when entering into this very specialized niche, I think is quite an important thing to do, definitely. Can you actually walk us through a case study, where SmartBlocks has successfully helped a client understand tokenization in real estate?
Well, that's a challenge, but I'll talk about a previous one because SmartBlocks just launched, and we've got two funds and 2 properties that are coming on. But so previously we did a big, and I mean a massive gold mine in Ghana. And so we're using the gold in Ghana and what was still in the ground as collateral for the token that we were issuing. Now you can imagine, these guys that own the gold mine in Ghana, their knowledge of tokenization was extremely limited. So like the Claude 3 example, or their ChatGPT example, you really have to dumb it down. And I don't mean to say that they were dumb at all. Exactly the opposite, very, very sharp. But you have to use analogies to talk about what it is that they're going to be doing. And what they did is they took tokens which represented a security interest in gold that's still in the ground, but that was going to be dug up eventually. And that they did understand that instead of a paper share, they're getting a digital token which represented a paper share or just a share in general. And like stocks, nobody's getting paper stocks anymore. They're all digital stocks, but you still own the stock. All that token it's instead of a stock, it's a token. And once you explain that to them, they got that aspect of it. But then you got to roll in the exchanges from around the world and how they all work. Unlike buying stocks here, if you're working globally like we are, you've got to know your customer, called KYC, and you've got to do what's called anti-money laundering, which is AML. You can't be selling these securities to anyone money laundering or somebody that you don't know that's behind the green curtain, so to speak. So that's an added layer that you typically don't get in the highly regulated NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, but we have to do it. And there's a good reason for it. It's just a pain in the butt. So there's third parties that do it, and we've brought on to do it because we're not the experts in either one of those things. Imagine a global database, you having to figure out whether somebody's money laundering or not. That's tough. It's very, very tough.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say, Mark, I am finding it very interesting and very insightful just in terms of the sort of forward-thinking approach that you have. And I think that's probably one of the things that has assisted you in being able to be such a force, within this very sort of, different model, something that people are, in essence, I guess, kind of afraid of because they don't really understand it. But as you said, it is something that's going to emerge, and it's something that's going to be constantly developing. And eventually it's going to become such a big part of our lives at the end of the day. Now, Mark, for businesses offering emerging tech solutions, which 4 branding or positioning strategies have you found most effective in making this niche service feel accessible and valuable to clients?
So the biggest thing with the branding of SmartBlocks is in the knowledge that we're a safe and secure place where we have vetted every single piece of real estate that's come on. And we basically certify it through third parties. It's not even us. We have third parties that are saying this is appraised at this. We did our own appraisal. We looked at their appraisal. We looked at their financials. So they get an extra layer of protection they might not get if they were to invest directly in some sort of real estate fund or some property in Panama. Mm-hmm. So the branding for us is security, that they're getting at least a fair investment at the time of investment. Now, nobody can predict what's going to happen, but at the time, we've done a ton of due diligence. The developer's done their due diligence, but they're an interested third party. So when I talk to people, I say we turn down about 80% of the things that come at us. It just doesn't work, or it just doesn't work for our investors. It might be a great project, it just doesn't work for the investors that we're talking to on a regular basis.
Right.
So I think that's number one for that for them is like safety and security, and then we get into the blockchain discussion and how it's even safer than paper shares, and it's tradable. I mean, that's the big thing. You could trade it around the world. You can't do that with paper shares of real estate. You know, we've made real estate very liquid, and you can borrow it against it in the future. And that to them is without selling a share of your real estate, you can borrow against it quite easily. Not now, but in about a year from now. So all of these things have huge benefits and huge repercussions for what's going to happen in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Now, we know that social media and thought leadership are central to your strategy. I've actually seen a couple of your videos. What I did appreciate about them is the fact that you actually break things down in sort of like an A to Z style format, where, you know, if one were to land on your page, you know, and they want to understand a little bit more about who you are, and then also what it is that SmartBlocks does, and also tokenization itself, you really do give a very nice sort of, you know, step by step in terms of explaining that, which I think is very powerful. And sometimes it's also very good to get down to basics, you know, and do things like that so that people out there can understand something, especially something that they don't really know, or they would like to understand. You know, especially when you're looking at sort of, you know, your brands or your agencies that are wanting to dabble into this. Now, how have you used your platform itself to actually scale SmartBlocks' reach? And what 5 tactics should agency leaders consider to effectively leverage their own platforms to make their niche services more accessible?
Wow, that's a massive question there. Okay, so what 5 services? Wow. I mean, initially, you want to get known in the right audience. Now, we have 2 audiences. One are real estate developers and one are investors. So we said, well, wow, this is a global audience. How do we narrow that down? So then we chose 2 countries, essentially the US and the UAE. We'll take them from anywhere, but we're really talking now to investors and developers in the UAE and the USA. And that is our niche. And that's massive. We're talking 70 trillion just there. Globally, it's 280 trillion. So we're trying to narrow it down even more. Maybe we'll go to multifamily. We don't know yet. You know, just focus on multifamily. You talked about flats, which is a very British term. But we could do that, you know, multifamily or a bunch of flats in Europe, and just focus on that, which will bring us down to like, you know, still about 20 or 30 trillion. It's a massive number, but we're trying to figure out, you know, where to go there. So once you figure that out, then you got to figure out how to talk to these 2 audiences. We have 2, which makes it harder because we're basically a marketplace. So then you have to figure out how to talk to them, how to get them interested, because there's a lot of noise out there in our industry. And we have the added challenge of explaining blockchain and tokenization. So it's like, okay, how do we talk to them? How do we educate them? And then how do we get them to act? And those are extremely challenging. You know, it's like, I don't know if you know Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm. We haven't crossed the chasm yet. We're still working on those early adopters, getting them across and showing success, which we will. And there have been successes, but there's not enough of them yet. There will be. It's still early. So then when you get there, you figure out the messaging, you figure out the offer, you figure out the education that's going to push people across, the early adopters. Then you have to put what channels do you have to market on? And for us, you know, it's been LinkedIn, it's been Facebook, it's been Instagram. It's where all of these people are. And there's not one that's really emerged. I think Facebook does the best job of finding the right audiences. I don't know what kind of algorithmic pixie dust they've got sprinkled all over, but they do seem to find it. And I appreciate that. And I'm talking global. I mean, they have half the world's population on their platforms, both Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. So if you're going to find them, you know, Facebook is going to do it. I haven't figured it out. Google, I think because Google's more, you got to search for things. I don't know how many people are searching for how do I tokenize a building yet, but I think Google will be a big force in the future. YouTube certainly does work. I haven't experimented with that yet, but we've got a big YouTube channel. And then lastly, you know, it's for us anyway, it's making sure the onboarding process is second to none, like every step of the way, leading them to getting this thing listed and on our platform, and then marketing it so that it gets funded. So
Right.
some of the marketing is the onboarding and letting people, do word of mouth about, wow, this is the best onboarding experience I've ever had. So those are the 5 steps we look at. But we're still early. So somebody that's in a more mature industry will have a different experience.
Definitely, yeah. Now, Mark, as the CEO of a successful niche agency, what do you feel are the 4 red flags that clients should watch out for when choosing a niche agency? Are there like specific warning signs that could indicate shady businesses practice?
Ooh, yes. A lot of them are very good at faking testimonials and case studies. I would verify with the actual person giving the testimony or the case study. I think that would be a big red flag for me. 2, it's really understanding how they were successful within that niche. If you need a niche agency, how were they successful in that niche? Sometimes you want an outside agency that's not in your niche that brings other ideas from other similar types of niches. So
True.
You have to weigh that. A third red flag for me would be the type of sales tactics that they're using in order to bring you on board. I'll give you one example. There's a very popular influencer on Instagram and YouTube, and he's selling this, $25,000 package where you attend a house party of his, and you're going to get introduced to all of these people that'll help, with your business and stuff like that. I mean, to me, that's a total scam. It's just a money grab. So that's one sales tactic, and there's many. You have to be very careful of these. 4th red flag, let's see. I would say you look at the CEO and you look at the reputation of the CEO. It's an easy Google search, and then you find out what other people are saying about them. And if the reviews are bad, then you might want to stay away. You have to be somewhat careful, because I know competitors that do dirty tricks that will try to tank you because you're too successful. So really take the time to look at those reviews, negative especially, and to see if there's any sort of pattern there.
Yeah. Okay. So true, and very interesting. The 4 that you've mentioned, and then finally, Mark, what 3 unique client communication or engagement strategies have proven most effective for you, and how can agency leaders apply these to create value and transparency in their own niche offerings?
Yeah, I like this question. I mean, the first one is have a project management system like Asana, so at any point in time, people can log in, see where they're at. Also is a weekly scorecard. So we put every one of our clients on a weekly scorecard where we go through all the objectives that we worked out ahead of time and where we are with those objectives. Any roadblocks, whatever, have got to be solved in that meeting, or at least a plan to solve them. And that keeps the client aware that, okay, they're telling us there's a problem, whether it's internally or with us, the client, and we need to resolve it. Instead of, I see some agencies that are just doing stuff and the client's blind to what that stuff is. They might be doing great work, but they're blind to what it is. So if you could see, if you're a lead generation agency, I'm supposed to generate 100 leads a week and you're only generating 20, well, that discussion that week is going to be, well, here's how we're going to generate the 80 that we missed last week. And so it's very constructive, but at least you're seeing the report card as you go, and you can make a determination whether the agency is getting it done or not, or maybe it's something else that's missing. Maybe it's the messaging, or there's all sorts of things. It really takes some time to figure out, especially as an agency coming in cold, whether, how the messaging should work, the offer should work in 2 or 3 months. That's why I like niche, because if you've already done scuba diving, you know it all. You know what it is. It's just a different part of the country. You already know. So it's better to hire those niche agencies most of the time. But again, everything comes with an asterisk here. And the third thing is, okay, you got the project management solution, you've got the scorecarding system, and then the third part, as far as client communication, is making sure that you tell them both the good and the bad along the way. You don't have to wait for the meeting. You tell them the good and the bad. Here's what's working. And if the client isn't mature enough to handle bad news, you got another issue there. But I find most are. It's business. It's not personal. And you should be letting them know, and they'll trust you more when you deliver bad news as soon as you hear it.
All right. Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the Design Rush podcast. It was actually so great to meet you, and you provided some very important, insightful, thoughts into just everything it is that you do, and SmartBlocks itself as an agency. So really appreciated your time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune into our latest episodes where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the Design Rush podcast and stay ahead of the competition.